Hello everyone, how are you doing? This week, once again, we're doing another Fireside chat on Thursday, a little bit earlier this time because obviously have a little bit more time, at least for me today. So we're going to try and sneak a few more people in, and obviously, if you don't know what the Fireside chat is an opportunity for you as a community member to come on and basically talk about anything you want when it relates to War Thunder, whether it's a new update, an old update, whether it's some changes you'd like to see in the game, whatever it is, you can come on and have a chat. Now, unfortunately last week, we had a little bit of an issue when it came to the VOD of the Fireside chats, which is why I always recommend to watch it live. So if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to check out the Twitch stream in the link below. And also, hello Vladimir, also hey Fallen Pilot, and Dimmy as well, or Dimmerus, and also NC, how are you guys doing today? And can you ask a quick question? When will the object parade be? And if there is room for me, there should be the object parade on Sunday this week, and I will be I will be announcing some stuff on Friday in regards to stuff like that. I just have to make sure that I am not going to be working or anything like that. But yeah, the 279 parade should be on Sunday, and we'll probably do the AU1 one as well. So yeah, I look forward to that when it is out. So yeah. Simple as that. So let's see what's going on. Let's see how everything is going. And it looks like we already have our first person ready to go. So this is straight into it. But the main thing as well is I'm going to be playing basically the Year 2, or also the B-17 today. I've also added some new commands to the chat. So if you want to put in like exclamation mark hanger or color, then it'll give you some useful links to either this hanger that I use or to some FAQ questions. If you want to ask a question, you can either come along onto the chat, or you can do it on the Tech Hub Discord in the Q&A for Tech Room, so I can read it and go through it. We won't be doing it when it comes to messages or stuff from the Twitch chat, because I don't have eyes in the back of my head. So it's unfortunate, but it is how it is. Anyway, let's get our first person on, and it is Dr. Bladesteel. How are you doing, brother? How is life?
Much better than I deserve. How are you today?
Well, that's good. I'm doing all right. Got home from work early, so obviously feeling a little bit better. Not as tired. So overall, pretty good. What do you want to chat about this week?
Well, I was sitting in voice chat a few days ago. It was probably, I think it was Tuesday. And the topic of strategic bombers came up, and there was actually quite a bit of pushback on strategic bombers, and by strategic bombers I mean stuff like the Tu-95 and the B-20 or B-52 and the B-36 Peacemaker.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of pushback from the concept of, what's the point?
Right.
To which I would counter, well, we've got the B-29 in the game.
I think I definitely think so. The main two criticisms I have of the super heavy stuff is, I think, the things we talked about before. So the fact that only really two nations would get it in the game. Most nations now, at least in game, have some kind of big heavy bomber. The HE-177, the B-29. The Soviets have stuff like the PE-8 or the Tu-4. The Chinese have a Tu-4. The Japanese have a G8N1. The British have the Lincoln. But none of these compare to the scale of those other larger bombers that you're talking about. And I think a lot of people are kind of hurt by the past in War Thunder. Whenever one of these large top-tier bombers gets added, whether it is something like that or whether it is something like a Votor, it breaks the game for at least an update, right? And then
I remember the
yeah.
TU2 apocalypse.
Yeah, exactly. So so I think a lot of people are wary of that, right? And I think relatively, to be so. I think personally there is a way of fitting them in the game. I was actually talking to CK16, who is very much an American advocate when it comes to the game, and he was talking about the idea of maybe adding them in as AI. Or something like that, but to actually have them as playable units in the game, I feel like with the bomb loads they have and the craziness they'd have, it would be a feast or famine scenario, if that makes sense. Because you're either going to get annihilated by air-to-air missiles, or you're going to end the game in 5 minutes. There's there's going to be no in between.
So what would prevent? Now, whether or not this actually were to happen, or whether or not is a whole other issue. But what if they were to be in a BR bracket, to where like they would be pretty much the only bombers, and you just increase the base health to the relative scale of where it is at 4-3, just as a random example, to where a full team of B-17s can destroy all the bases and get the base to like half health, assuming none get intercepted.
So with let's just talk about the Tu-95, so the Bear, and then what's the Peacemaker, the B-36. Let's just right. Okay, so first thing we've done is we've put them at a BR bracket where they're by themselves with other aircraft. So if to do that in game right now, you would have to put them at what, 10-3 or 10-0.
Probably.
Right. And now, as I said with the feast or famine thing, that I feel like fighters at that tier would annihilate those two machines, unless you made them spawn like at crazy high altitudes at the moment, which is why. What do you mean fix the sound of my stream? What's wrong with it? Sorry, I've literally just got a message from a guy in game in my match saying there's a problem with my stream sound. I don't know what's going on, but
that's one way to do it.
Yeah. But so let's say you put them at 10.3. Would you be worried about the vehicles at that BR pretty much annihilating those two machines, or do you think they could hold their own?
I don't know. The difficult part with that is, again, they don't have any armament. Well, I think the B-52 might have had there may be some guns, but I don't think they're nearly as heavily defensively armed as, say, the B-29. And so I think you definitely have a valid point of, well, if they're sat at a spot where they can't be intercepted, then you've got the feast, and then if they're in a spot where they just get shot down all the time, it's famine. And, yeah, I see that point. I don't know how you do that. I really don't.
So I think well, what if the way I'd see it is, a lot of bombers have gone through this during their history in War Thunder. So a classic example is the B-17s. They went through this where they were very much insanely good for quite a long period of time, and then they became pretty much useless, and now they're in a state where you have a very specific playstyle in order to do well in them. But that playstyle.
Fly the deck.
Well, you can fly to the deck, or you can,
or you can climb to space.
Yeah, or you could climb to space. What if in War Thunder for these larger tier bombers, what if it's just the same for them, and it's just something we have to accept, where they'll have a very defined playstyle of how to play, and we'll add them for the historical significance, but we kind of have to make sure that they're not going to be machines that will annihilate the game, like the competitive side of it. Like, you don't want them ending games like really quickly, but at the same time, you want them to be kind of usable. So, well, what if we just did that, where you make it so you only can play them, a very specific way?
I think I would I don't see a way without completely revolutionizing the way we do game modes in War Thunder to make bombers play any different, other than the feast or famine scenario we're talking about.
Yeah, and
I think they're in a good spot. I think bombers are in a good spot. And this is totally subjective. I don't have the numbers. I think they're in a good spot now, and I would totally be okay with these being in for the historical significance, being in for the, hey, I'm flying a vehicle that has the largest bomb load of whatever, or hey, I'm flying the vehicle that was mass produced in my hometown, with the case of the B-36.
Yeah.
For the historical significance, this is why I fly B-17s is they're historically significant.
Yeah, I agree.
And they don't have to be good. I mean, I'd like it that I could actually make up my repair cost in it. That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
But they don't have to be fantastic.
Yeah, I agree with you. So when it comes to these large machines, because obviously, we've identified some fundamental problems with the game modes that there are, what do you think can be done then for them? Let's say that we've decided, okay, these have to be in the game, and we have to put them in Air Arcade, Air Realistic, Air EC. How do we mold the game mode apart from what you said before, which would be the basically just increasing the stuff across the board, which I think is a good suggestion. Do you think there's any other way we could try and fit them into the current system we have in War Thunder?
I don't play arcade, so I can't put too much. I can't add too much there. I think in terms of enduring confrontation, from what I understand about it, if you at that tier, you put the strategic bombing targets at very long distance and have a very high air spawn, to where it would be historically, I don't know, a historically representative scenario.
Yeah.
To where you'd have, so maybe 1 or 2 fighters from the enemy team, or maybe 1 or 2 fighters per enemy bomber would divert up and go intercept those boys. But I think as long as you make it to where a 4-man squad, or I don't know how that works during confrontation, if you make it to a point where a group of people can't come together and create a death squad and just go in and kill games, like with the TU2 when that was a big problem.
The TU4.
Where you have TU4.
Yeah.
Whichever the one that looks exactly like a B-25 or a B-29.
Yeah.
Which, kudos to the Russians. Where you'd have a 4-man squad that would go in and just end the game in 5 minutes, which wasn't fun for anyone. I think as long as you design the game modes, and that could be through base HP, that could be the distance between bases and your airfield, that could be the height of their air spawn. Because I think maybe the ideal situation is if you had 4 bombers on each side, if you put it in a situation where in the average, a full team of 4 bombers, if they're ignored, could end the game in 2 runs. Maybe? I don't know. I'd have to look at that. I'd have to play that to really tell. I'm sorry, I'm not much help here.
No. I mean, it's pretty much an expansion of what you said before. The idea of just kind of increasing everything's health. And I think that's, as I said, a good suggestion. The only thing I'm worried about is once these, the top tier, let's call it meta for planes right now is very, very low to the ground. Very low altitude, very, as I said, very close to the ground. So the problem with that is if you now introduce like a bunch of planes which are going to go incredibly high altitude, which the B-36 and the Tu-95 will, now you're going to create a scenario where a lot of the fighters are going to be stuck in a really weird situation, where if they try and climb, then they're probably going to get battered by the people who are conserving energy near the ground, or they're gonna stay low, and then they're not gonna be able to deal with the bombers. So it's just a funky, weird scenario, and the meta would have to shift for it. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think changing up gameplay is fine in general for most things.
And perhaps it could give a reason for vehicles like, I know you've mentioned before, the Lightning and the Draken are both straight line bomber interceptors. That's what they were designed for in their entirety. Kind of like, again, going back to lower tier, because that's what I have.
Yeah.
4.0, the P-61. The P-61's not good for much except shooting down bombers, but it's really good at shooting down bombers.
Yeah, I agree. And it's also pretty good for information, like with the radar. That radar's really good.
For sure.
But yeah, I would agree that it's fine having vehicles which have specialized roles in the game, and yeah, I mean the addition of these would definitely help stuff like the Lightning out, right? Like the Lightning is not in a great position at the moment, and that's because it's been added way too late compared to where it should have been, which is fine. It is how it is. But maybe with new additions, we could definitely see it get kind of a new lease of life. Yeah. I mean, the now, main...
what about...
Go ahead, sorry.
What about ordnance?
For the large bombers?
Yeah, because they could carry... they can carry everything from cluster bombs, JDAM guided munitions. How would you want to steer away from guided munitions and cluster munitions? Would you want to... how?
I think cluster...
Just to avoid abuse in realistic.
I think guided munitions are a terrible idea for air-to-ground stuff. I'm fine with kind of like the guided bombed idea, because you still have to like launch it in a certain area and then kind of dial it in. But when it comes to like anything guided from a missile point of view, or guided motor on a bomb or anything like that, that screams abusable to me. And the thing that I'm thinking about is we're just talking from a complete aerialistic point of view, right? If you take something like, and not many people do this for the obvious reasons, it costs a lot to do in SL, and also it's kind of boring to do so. One of the big things that you can do in aerialistic is you can just fly a B-29 across a lot of maps, such as Berlin, and carpet bomb the whole map. And I feel like with stuff like the B-36 and the Tu-95, you would just do that at a greater extent. And I'm kind of worried about that, because I don't want to see people rushing into small vehicles and then, basically just getting in one of them and carpet bombing a whole enemy team.
So what about giving the B-29? I don't know what the certain rounds, but I know that there's it's a fin guided missile, or a fin guided bomb. So it's got no motor, it's free fall, but you can kind of dial it in, kind of like the Fritz, I think.
Yeah, sure, why not? I mean, it doesn't, at the end of the day, like, most people are just going to use them as normal bombs, right? So it's not really going to make a difference from that point of view. I'm just more worried about stuff like missiles and firing from distances. That's why I've always been worried about whenever people bring up the A10, because the A10, once again, it's another feast or famine idea, where it's
and with those Mavericks.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you either give it the good Mavericks and it takes over the game, or you don't give it Mavericks and it's a really slow machine which does nothing. And gets shot down by radar guided AA. So yeah, it's definitely a dodgy balancing point of view from ground realistic for these large bombers, but I don't even want to think about that. Like it's kind of crazy. But yeah, do you have any last thoughts for this section? It's once again a lovely talk about these things.
I did want to thank you for last Fireside chat. Your advice was very helpful.
That's all good. Thank you for coming on again. It's always a pleasure to chat to people about this stuff. And do you think so? If you're gonna, let's say you want to make a prediction, do you think we see these bombers in game?
I think just with the steady march, because I remember when everyone's like, oh, they're never going to go past gunfighters.
Yeah.
Because the balancing of the missiles would be too difficult. And obviously we've seen that's not been the case.
Yeah.
I think it's inevitable.
Yeah, I think so too.
It'll largely depend on how well they implement it, as is everything.
Yeah, I think it's inevitable too. I think they're gonna go more down the kind of like multi-role vehicles first before we get into these, large humper chunkers. But we'll see.
Well, as they should.
Yeah.
Oh, I did have one more question.
Oh, okay.
You had a few videos a while back about like user missions.
Yes.
That had like the A10.
Mm-hmm.
Where do I find those, and how do I use them?
So basically, if you go to War Thunder Live, and then you go to the models section, a lot of people have uploaded like basic. I mean, do you play on console or do you play on PC?
I play on PC.
Okay, so yeah, you can do this. So yeah, basically, yeah, you have to. Just wait. I'm still getting messages in game. This is ridiculous. Anyway, so yeah, you basically go to the War Thunder models thing. You click on like the one that you want. Just understand that a few of them are outdated, so you got to watch out for that. And you download the files, and normally you extract the files into a folder, and then you drag all that stuff into your War Thunder, like like where your War Thunder files are on your computer. But most of the models tell you exactly how to extract them into it, and then once you've done that, you just go to the user missions part of War Thunder, and yeah, they're there, and you can play them.
Cool.
So yeah, there's a bunch of user missions, and it's kind of sad that console players don't get it, but it is how it is. You can get stuff like the A10 and the M1A1HA, and there's even stuff for the XF85, the Goblin, and stuff like that, which is kind of crazy. But anyway, it's been lovely having you on, as usual, and I just want to say thank you for coming on, and catch you next time, bud.
Catch you next time. Thank you for having me.
So that was Dr. Blade Steel. Nice to have him. And I see a few of you are talking about the game screen being small. I mean, there's a reason for that. It's because this is more of a podcasty idea. The gameplay is definitely secondary. If you believe that the gameplay should be a little bit bigger, please, DM me on Discord. I can work on the templates and stuff, later on. And yes, I know I'm not, reacting to the Twitch chat and things, but that's basically because, we're having people on. We're talking to the general community. If you want to be part of that community, make sure to join the Tech Hub and the Discord. And what you can do is come on or put a question in Q&A for tech. So yeah, if you're on your phone, you can zoom it in. Oh, fair enough. Well, as I said, like if it's, I'll talk to some people, and if the gameplay is too small, then I'll make sure to modify the template so it's a little bit bigger for you guys. We have a few more questions from Q&A for tech, so let's have a look. Kate asks, back at it again with a very important question. What's your most favourite cake? Victoria Sponge is the only cake that matters. Victoria Sponge is a beautiful cake. Very simple to make, and with cream and strawberry jam, and with a dusting of course, a little bit of sugar. It's always the way to go. Short and sweet and simple. The next question comes from StarMax, and he asks, do you think the Saab 37 Viggen would fit in at top tier, or is it a bit too good? I think it would be good since it doesn't turn as well as the Draken, and will potentially carry some better ordnance for aerial threats. So yes, I think the Viggen would be fine at top tier right now. With the introduction of the Dragon and how, in my opinion, what I've seen, it looks very lackluster. I think personally, yes, it would be nice to see a little bit more stuff for the Swedish, and I'm sure the Viggen will come soon. The fact is as well, if they wanted to add in a Draken with different ordnance, they could do if they wanted to. So yeah, that's definitely an option as well, if they, if they wanted to. So yeah, hopefully we see hopefully we see one of them next. So the next person coming on is Pink Princess. So let's have a little gander. How are you doing, Pink Princess? How are you today?
I am extremely busy given that there is a quarantine in my country, so yeah, I'm not doing anything and wasting my time on War Thunder.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's definitely hit a lot of us. Like, just, I suppose the boredom has started setting in, which is kind of crazy.
Well, in one way, I am happy that there's a quarantine because I had tests coming up on in the college, so I just got emails from few professors saying that I passed because I showed up on 2 seminars. So yeah.
Okay,
So
well, there you go. Participation awards, nice.
yeah, I was the only one there, so at least it paid up.
Oh, that's true. So what do you want to talk about today? What's on your mind?
I wanted to talk about possibility of Czechoslovak tank tree. I was here once before. I think it may be even half a year, but back then I wasn't much prepared. I didn't have any tree put together, which I did after a lot of struggling because I'm quite a lazy person. Who isn't?
Yeah, that's true.
And I would like to send it to you because to be talking about these vehicles without using what I mean is kind of like talking to a stone.
Oh, of course, yeah, send it my way. I can maybe bring it up on the screen so people can see it.
I mean, it's not all that. I wouldn't say there aren't flashy pictures. I
Oh, it doesn't
don't
need
like
to be,
to put in pictures. I love the text more.
Oh, I'm true as well. Like, I much prefer just big blocks of text. It just means that I get more information in a smaller area, so it works for me.
I've sent them to you.
So when when it comes to the for the Czechoslovia the how do you say it, Czechoslovakian?
Czechoslovak.
Oh, Czechoslovak. Okay. So when it comes to this tech tree, would you want it to be an independent tech tree, or would you believe it should be linked to another nation? And if so, which one?
I mean, it really depends. It depends what you want for different tech trees.
Right.
If we would be talking about tank tree or plane tree, there wouldn't be a problem with it being completely separate tree. But if there are people who want 2 ships, yeah, we had altogether 7 ships, which I've sent to you also. But when it comes to planes and tanks, there's like 90 or 100 vehicles that I was able to put together. So with tanks, there wouldn't be a single problem why it shouldn't be separate tech tree.
Yeah.
When it comes to planes, there are foreign designs and planes, but I mean, when the Soviets came in 1950, they didn't ask us if we want to have our own planes. But still, there are quite interesting attackers which were domestically produced here, and I would say they are quite interesting. For example, if you have the tree in front of you, the plane tree, the L-29 Dolphin, that was an attacker, and it had quite interesting armament. For example, it could carry 256 SSK rockets. I mean, that would be quite useful in realistic tank battles if you want to delete quite a big portion of enemy team.
So which one do you want to go through first? Do you want to go through, like, which link? Do you want to do the tanks first? Because there's obviously quite a lot of them here. I'm not gonna. I'll put this on the screen for like 2 seconds just to show you guys how much there is. But obviously, it will be very low res. But just to give you an idea of what's been put together here. by, of course, Pink Princess. You can kind of see the scale of what's going on, just to show you how many tanks are available. So here is the tank tech tree that he's created, or at least the tanks which would be available for the nation. Then you have this plane tech tree, which once again would be pretty good. Obviously there are a few copy paste, but overall it would be pretty nice. And then here are the ships. So you can see the ships are very much lacking, but everything else is looking pretty nice.
They would be only for some fun for you to enjoy,
Yeah.
because there isn't a lot that you would do with 7 ships. But if you must definitely have ships, then it's at least something.
Yeah, true. So when it comes to let's just focus on the tanks for now, since obviously there aren't that many ships. And when it comes to the planes, there's actually some decent ones that I've heard of here. But the fact is, when it comes to tanks, would you say there are general themes when it comes to the overall design of the Chekoslav tanks, or is it kind of just like all over the place depending on who wanted to build them?
They are, well, I don't know how to describe that, but Czechoslovakia was quite a huge producer of weapons before Second World War, even after. So many of these tanks they were made by companies independently from the state. Some were ordered to be constructed by the state. And that's pretty much what happened all over the place. If you look on the higher tiers, you can see that there is standardization, because Soviets took over, well, not Soviets, but communists, unfortunately. So from then, it's Czech-produced foreign, mostly Soviet designs. But still there are some tweaks that were made. For example, if I would be to give one, the OT-62B, if you are familiar with BTR-50, the troop carrier.
Yeah.
The Soviet one. The OT-62 was, I would say, not completely redesigned, but the engine was changed, transmission was changed, armor was thickened, and we kinda got crazy with it and strapped 2 recoilless guns on it with one variant or so. They just took recoilless gun that was like on tripod and just welded it to the tank. So that's pretty much what happened. What would be interesting about the Czechoslovak tank tree is obviously we are in the middle of Europe. So it was kinda, hey guys, we are invading Russia, let's go through Czech Republic and such. So we have crap ton of vehicles from all over the place. Obviously, for example, the Hetze, it was Czech designed and produced in Protectorate Bomen und Maren, which was part of Czechoslovakia that was left after we were paid a visit by Germans. What's interesting little fact is that the whole Normandy was armed with weapons produced in Czechoslovakia. So when the British and Americans were coming to take down Hitler, they were being killed by weapons from the weapons factories that they gave to Adolf Hitler. When they kinda said that we want to give our border regions to Germans. But the interesting part is that we have German tanks that we used and kinda did what we wanted with them. Some were a bit crazier things. For example, if you know the SDKFZ 250, we kinda remade it into OT 800D, and we strapped recoilless rifle on the back. And it looks really hilarious. It looks completely retarded. It's probably even taller than KV2, and it has virtually no armor. But if I would be to start listing the tanks or saying something about them.
Yeah,
I would,
what I would do is I would pick some of your favorites that have interesting information, because normally the best way to get people interested in tech trees or in general ideas from nations is to kind of give them like a sneak peek, so then they can go and have a look at more. So maybe pick like 5 or 10 vehicles, and then give some cool information.
yeah. So I would obviously light tanks. Many of these wouldn't be widely known. I mean, not many people know about these tanks, and every time I start talking about the possibility of Czechoslovak tanks, I'm told, wait, Czechoslovakia had like only LT-38, LT-35. Yeah, pretty much this is the extent of vehicles that were produced and used by us. So for first pick, I would probably choose the VPZV Sněžka. Don't even try to pronounce it. It's hard for English-speaking people. And the BPZV Svatava. Those are modifications of BVP2 in the case of the Sněžka and BVP1 in the case of Svatava. The interesting part is that both of them had thermal sights. Even more interesting is that the Svatava had a passive ground radio locator, which means that it could spot vehicles with radio locator on the ground. Obviously, such a thing would not be possible in War Thunder, but even the addition of the thermal sights is quite interesting for me, because BVP 1 and 2, they are great vehicles, but when you get night battles and, for example, you meet Centauro with thermal sight, it's quite a pain in the ass, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's not too fun. I agree with you.
it's not too fun. If anybody would be interested, why the hell is BVP2 with thermal sight on the 7.0? It's because due to the installation of thermal sights, it didn't have the possibility of carrying rockets. It had instead 620 rounds of ammunition, so the ammunition load was increased. And the BVP1, the Svatava, I put it on suggested 7.7, because even though it does have thermal sights, still it's BMP1, and the reach of its cannon is quite limited, in my opinion. And also the installation of thermal sights caused that you couldn't use any rocket except for Malyutka, and that's quite limiting in itself.
Yeah, I agree.
Then you can see all that flows. I mean, another maybe more interesting would be the BVP M2 SKCZ called Shakal, which is a project of remodeling BVP2, well, BMP2 in Czech Republic, we call them BVP. So sorry if I would be changing these names. It was armed with spike alarm missiles with 750 millimeters of penetration, and interestingly with Mark 44 Bushmaster 2 cannon, which could be interesting for many people. I mean, I wouldn't be probably talking about the lower tier things. Many people probably know the T-54 and 55 AM. Yeah, well, in War Thunder, it's named after the Russian thing. We did kind of our different thing. And at one time, there were like 6 tanks in Warsaw Pact that were named T-54 and 55 AM. So it gets quite confusing. There is difference between the Russian, Polish, and Czech.
Yeah.
I would probably... did you want to say something?
No, go ahead.
Oh, then I would say something about top tier main battle tanks, because that's obviously what everybody is hyped about nowadays. I put some picks in there. With Czech top tiers, it would be mostly our production of T-72s. We sold them even to the East Germany, to Libya, and all around the place. So I can say that they weren't sold around. Interesting part would be probably the T-72 M2 variants. because you have 30mm 2A46 cannon, the one that's on BMP2. In the case of T-72M2, there's one cannon placed on the back of the turret, something similar to MBT. With the variant M2E, there were two 30mm cannons on the side of the turret, which is completely retarded, but in War Thunder it could possibly work against helicopters. I mean, who likes spawning in and getting destroyed by a helicopter without having a chance to counter it? And let's be honest, the elevation of Russian cannons is quite insufficient for that matter, so the 30 mils would help. Then there are variants M1A and following to T-72 Scarab. Those are all equipped with ERA plates. It's possible to even give them checkmate ammunition, but I don't think that that would be wise, because the check ammunition that is produced is much more above what right now the Russians have, for example. So that would be unnecessary, given the fact that these vehicles are quite armored for War Thunder. For example, T-72 M1A has like 1.2 meter on the turret against heat, of course. 700 to 800 millimeters when it comes to kinetic energy projectiles, which is not a small number in my opinion. And for example, the T-72M4CZ would be quite interesting, because our army just went crazy and put 1200 horsepower engine into T-72, so it runs around like a crazy.
Yeah,
And then I mean, it would be quite interesting if you compare that to the typical 800 horsepower engines in T-72s. Then the 1200 horsepower engine is kinda extremely nice. Then if I would be left with, let's say, 2 more picks to get to the 5, I would probably choose the OT-64 PTR K9K11 Malyutka carrier, which is checkmate APC OT-64, and we strapped Malyutka missiles to it. It can reach up to 100 kilometers per hour on road, and it was armed with Malyutka missiles. So something like Rocket Enact Panzer II, but much faster. But the armor was 14 millimeters sloped, and it was amphibious. So I think it would be an interesting vehicle, because you have Malyutka missiles. Of course, you have to guide them using VASD, but you can go up to 100 kilometers per hour, so getting anywhere on the map wouldn't be a problem. Getting into any position you want. It's amphibious, so you can make some river crossings, for example. What's the downside of that vehicle is that it can aim only right in front of the vehicle. The missiles and the mount, or even the aiming device, isn't mobile, so it can't rotate. So it might be quite interesting to get hits with it. You would need to get into position. The other thing, and the last thing that I would probably give here as something to be interested about, would be the AA, the Strop 2. Strop in Czech means ceiling in English. And it's interesting because it has one double cannon from the Tunguska, and it has 2 missiles. The interesting part is that it can go up to 90 kilometers per hour on the road. So just imagine Tunguska running around the map at 90 kilometers per hour. That's what you would get. And I mean, it sounds really crazy, and I would really want to see it in the game.
Yeah, that sounds kind of ridiculous, but I mean, the amount of light vehicles we have at higher tiers now, which can kind of do that anyway. Like, you know, why not? Is kind of the idea I have nowadays when it comes to that.
I mean, you have a lot of light tanks and APCs that can do that, but imagine Tunguska running around at 90 per hour.
Yeah.
That would be, first, really ridiculous, and second, quite awesome to play with. And given the fact that it has only one double cannon, not both the double cannons, and it has a huge turret, so the ammunition load is much higher than with Tunguska. Uh, Another interesting thing is that it uses passive radio locator, so no radar beeping on the aircraft when they are approaching you. The downside is that it has only two missiles, and those are Strela S missiles, so those are lock-on missiles with the reach of 2 kilometers. So, while somebody may think that it would be OP, which I was told a few times already, I don't think so. Firstly, it also, as Tunguska, has only 8 to 10 millimeters of armor, and the second, you have only two missiles with reach up to 2 kilometers. But the double cannon is the same, so you would be able to spray practically everything.
Yeah. So obviously, when we have a look at these tech trees, so the ground is looking pretty good. The aviation is looking okay, if not a little bit lacking, but it's fine. The naval tech tree is, well, it's
Yeah, pretty much bad joke.
So obviously, the one that's missing is the helicopter tech tree. Is there a helicopter tech tree for this? Like, or you know, what helicopters are used today? You know, around that area.
To be honest, I got kind of lazy with helicopters, so I put them to the plane tech tree. And I kind of didn't want to look up helicopters, so I only found three that I knew about, which is MI1, MI8 AMTSH, and MI24D. With the MI24D, you are familiar from the War Thunder already, because there is the premium. It's a premium. It's the Czech one. You have even markings on it. If you missed that flag in the back, that roundel.
Yeah.
The MI1, it was supposed to be like reconnaissance helicopter, but still we got crazy and strapped 6 Malyutkas to it. So you have MI1 with Malyutkas. I mean, the performance of MI1 isn't all that great, but I think that the Malyutkas would kind of counter the bad flight abilities of it. The MI8, it's a huge as helicopter. I mean, you can strap to it whatever you want, as we do, Soviets did. So you can strap rockets to it. It's flying school bus, just like Mi4, but it's faster and it has more crew, and it can carry more. Then you have the Mi-24D, and depending on the fact that I didn't look how the trade went, we are supposed to receive new Apaches, right? Sometime around now, if the deal was signed. We were ordering them from the US. So there could be even Apache as the top tier helicopter. So even the helicopters wouldn't be lacking. I was just too lazy to find them.
That makes sense. So, in your ideal vision, do you see this as something that should be added as an independent idea, or would you be fine with a compromise of, you know, adding it to a pre-existing tree?
I mean, I would be fine with some of the vehicles being added into existing tree, but I would love to also see it as an independent tree, because I mean, I didn't start playing War Thunder yesterday. I have something around 15 to 16,000 battles in the game already, and I played like 4 years. And I can tell you that if you go on top tier simulator battles, then you are going to wait a hell of a lot of time before you get into battle with NATO side like Germany or US. it takes quite a lot of time and waiting before you get into battle. Sometimes I had to wait even 15 minutes because there just wasn't enough people playing the Russians. I'm not saying that the Russian tanks aren't good enough. It's just that if you play with some 9.3, 9.7 Russian tanks, there isn't a thermal sight, and people just don't want to play it. And they added Chinese tech tree into the game, but that's pretty much a copy paste. And I know a lot of people would love to play 5 or 6 tanks that are Chinese and in the tree, but they just don't want to research again all these vehicles that they already have and play with it, which ended up causing that pretty much, well, I don't want to say to nobody that nobody plays the tree, but the amount of players that play the Chinese tech tree to support and supplement the Russian tech tree is just so small that it still takes ages to get into battle in simulators. And possibly even in, for example, realistic battles, you have to wait longer than if you had another tree on the side with Russians. I mean, I don't personally like Russians or Soviets, but I would survive if our nation was put on their side in the terms that it would make the battles being found faster. For that reason, I would like to see it as an independent tree. I mean, yes, there are literally only 7 ships, but on the other hand, how many people play naval battles? I mean, when I play with 4.3 Russian ships, I have to wait 5 minutes for a battle, and half of the team is still bots. So it's not like many people play it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true. The fact is, at least, I think anything added to naval will help it in the long run, no matter how crazy or weird and wonderful the ships are. I would like to see more Czech vehicles in the game. I think, when we get a more expansive or more sorted out, full tree of the major nations, then stuff like, those areas of the world can be, added. Hopefully we see them. Do you have any last thing that you want to, say to the chat or the stream, or any lasting thoughts?
Well, probably only have a nice day or night. I don't know what's the time in your place of the world. And enjoy the game. And given that you are playing planes right now, I hope that the sparks don't annoy you too much.
No, they'll be fine. I've been pretty much annihilated in 5 games in a row, but that's fine. It is how it is. Anyway, thanks for hanging out, Pink Princess, and also thank you for the information on the Czechoslovakian vehicles. I hope it piqued a lot of people's interest, as it does mine, when it comes to a lot of these ideas. Thank you, bud.
Have a nice day.
Alright, so that was Pink Princess, and obviously, if you want to come on, basically, in order to, join the Fireside chat, make sure to go to the Discord. You can see it under the stream, or you can type !Discord in the chat, and then have a look at news and announcements, and then it will give you the relevant information in order for you to come on. If you want to ask questions, make sure to do it in the Q&A for Tech Room on the Tech Discord, and if you don't want to do it there, why not just throw them in the Twitch chat? I'll have a look and go through them. So if you have any questions, please do throw them so I can go through them, or if you have any thoughts when it comes to the topics that have been talked about today, make sure to voice them as well. Thank you for the follow, McOatmeal, and also thank you for the follow, code name random1. That is very kind of you, and as always, thank you guys for supporting the stream as you do. It looks like we don't have any new people who want to come on at the moment, but hopefully soon we will do. Talking about many different topics. I know one of the topics which I was talking about earlier with a few individuals was aircraft carriers, and it seems like I was talking about this where it seems like there's this idea, at least from kind of, obviously I deal a lot with the American side of the community, and it seems like a lot of them are generally very interested in getting carriers because, well, guess what? That means American carriers, without thinking about every other nation in the world and how their relationship with the carriers is slightly different to America. And obviously, the monetization issues and all of that stuff, but yeah, it is how it is when it comes to those ideas. Hopefully at some point we will get more modern carriers in the game. Hopefully it is something that will be seen. You can talk about China ground forces with regards to the IFV and NCR. If you want to come on, Tubo, check news and announcements to, for the right people to ping and then or DM, and then you can sort it out, so we can get you on if you want to talk about good old China and have a good chin wag about what could be added and what we could see, because it's definitely true. And when it comes to China, it is a little bit of an issue, especially when it comes to its top tier, that there isn't a ton of stuff going on. For me, I'm much more interested in the minor or the middle nation of China. The fact that, it's missing stuff such as vehicles like the M42 Duster chassis with the is it the Chaffee turret or the Bulldog turret on it. I think that would be a really cool little vehicle just to run around in and give them a little bit of individuality, even though it would basically be the same. So yeah, it's one of those things where there's a bunch of stuff that is going on with the nation. There's a lot of stuff that could be added, mainly for top tier for China, and I'm sure over the next year or so we will see it. It's kind of interesting how we haven't seen any development of the general Chinese aviation tree since it's got out. All we've really seen is premiums be added to it, which is, it's not the best, is it? You want stuff which is slightly different to just average premiums, but maybe in the future that's what we'll see, maybe not. By the way, I am playing the Year 2 right now, and you can see how heavy the damn thing is. It's pretty much just really fat, and without the engine upgrades, it really just doesn't do anything. It's so slow, moving around the air, so that's a bit of an issue. Now, let's get good old Tubo on, so you can chat about the good old China stuff. How are you doing, Tubo? How is life?
I'm not dead.
Well, that's always a positive. We're 1 and not 0, so that's good. Anyway, so that you want to talk about some Chinese stuff? Let's go ahead.
Yeah, no, it doesn't seem like there was anybody really coming into here to talk that much. It's a subject, because I find myself lacking whenever I play top tier China with regards to mobility. That's one of the main concerns right now, other than anti-air, which I can get into in a second. Because there are quite a few interesting light tanks that they could add for top tier, of course, because the old shit, like you talked earlier about WZ131 or whatever it was.
Yes.
Which, did it exist? Did it not exist? We don't know. Kind of hard to find out. But with the more modern stuff, you have things like the VN17 light tank, which is an export vehicle, which is very common, or I think it's called the ZTQ-15. I can send you pictures of them if you're interested.
Yeah, if you want to. Even without just ZTZs, I was thinking about stuff like the Type 80. Or is it the Type 80? The one before, basically, the ZTZ96.
That depends, because you have... The Type 80 is certainly an option, but you also have, I think it's called the VT1 or the VT2, which later turned into the, what's it called? The MET that Pakistan uses.
I have no idea. I don't keep up with stuff like that. But the fact is, at least in game, I think you've hit the nail on the head when it comes to their top tier. One of the things that we see a lot when it comes to top tier stuff is mobility. If you have a talk to pretty much anyone when it comes to some of the main characteristics, mobility is always talked about, and China really doesn't have a lot of that. at the moment.
No, which is due to a lot, like, they're too, like, one couldn't really call them top tier MBTs because they aren't. They don't even have a 10.0. Warranted, of course, because they haven't been in the game for that long. No, because they're both based on vehicles that are, again, based on T-54, and they never really got a very good engine upgrade to keep up with the increasing weight of the vehicle. Now, the two vehicles I sent you are both light tanks. The top one is the VN-17 light tank, or IV. From what I've read about it, has either 25 or 30 and 2 missiles. But for me, the aspect that I'm looking for is the small autocannon and missiles plus the good mobility. The one below it is ZTQ-15, which I don't know a lot about. But if I remember correctly, it has a 105, and it's also a light tank. But for me, the most important aspect of them is mobility.
So this is the... Well, let's go through them then. So the first one that you mentioned. So it's obviously a tracked vehicle. It has access to what?
It supposedly has access to either 25 or 30 and 2 missiles, which I guess are those 2 tubes on the side of the black covers.
Ah, fair enough. So I'm guessing they're just general anti-tank missiles, or are they supposed to be anti-air stuff?
No, they're just anti-tank. The anti-air missiles that they take into use, such as found on the CSSA-5 anti-air, which is a wheeled anti-air with a 30mm chain gun and 4 missiles that they also use on the Gepard look-alike anti-air, which I can also find a picture of if you want.
That's up to you. But the main thing, I think, is since we've seen a lot of nations, such as, Britain, get a big expansion in their mobility, since they were, one of those nations which was talked about many times to be like a slow runner and, not really doing a lot. And then you have, vehicles such as the Vickers get added, stuff like the Roycat be added, a lot of vehicles which are pretty quick. And then you have a look at the Swedish, which also have a ton of mobility. It's kind of sad to see that China has been left behind in this regard.
Yeah. I found out. It has a 30mm automatic cannon, and there are 2 HJ-12 anti-tank missile launchers. But this is a very modern vehicle. And when I say very modern, I mean it's 3 years old.
3 years old, okay.
Yeah, it's from 2017. Hence the name VN-17. It's incredibly modern.
So is it actually in service, or is it...
It's an export time. It's export... But I can't find you a vehicle that they do use, which is way...
Wait, what, sorry?
I can find you the light tank that they do use.
Oh, okay.
Called the ZBD-04. It's more boring, which is why I didn't bring it up in the...
Well, this, well, here's the 30mm one, and then I'll put the other one on the screen just to show people what it is before I get killed in my aircraft. So the other one is, what do you call this?
On Google, it says it's ZTQ-15.
And it looks like it's a very... I mean, is it classed as a light tank? It looks kind of heavy to me.
That's what it says it is.
Like, I don't know, it looks like a...
Then again, we have seen more entries into the export market of things marketed as medium tanks nowadays.
That's true.
But this one is marketed as a light tank. But there are plenty of light tanks out there that look like they could be mediums, or not light tanks, more like tank destroyers or MBTs. But once you put them into scale, like next to an MBT,
yeah, they look a lot smaller. I suppose nowadays MBTs are pretty hefty in their size.
Yeah. Let's see. The ZTQ-15 was apparently meant to be a replacement to the Type 62 light tank, which is one of my favorite tanks in Chinese tech tree, because it doesn't have all brake, and it's a scout.
Yeah,
but yeah,
that's quite a nice little feature that it has.
Yeah. The main gun of the ZTQ-15 is the 105. So think similar performance of CTC-59T1, but on a lighter chassis, or hull, seeing as it weighs about 36 ton. Yeah, so it's got a 105 gun. The main gun of the ZTQ-15 is the 105. So think similar performance of CTC-59T1, but on a lighter chassis, or hull, seeing as it weighs about 36 ton. 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 36 It also seems to have an autoloader. But there is very little known, it seems, about this vehicle. Which is the issue, I think, with a lot of these Chinese tanks, because we don't know a lot about them.
Yeah, it is kind of sad. It would be nice if we had someone do like a fact-finding mission on a lot of the vehicles, just so we could, you know, kind of find out about them. Even if it isn't just, you know, for War Thunder or anything, it is kind of interesting how much is not really available for these vehicles. It would be nice to see a bit more. But
so general things about it. It carries a 105. It has an autoloader in the rear turret rack. 3 crew member layout. And it uses modular composite armor plus welded armor underneath.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, it has a 1,000 horsepower engine. Can go about 70 kilometers an hour. Which would be very nice, because having one of those fast main gun equipped vehicles is something that I feel every nation in War Thunder should have at this point. So seeing things like maybe the M128 Striker for the Americans, for example.
I definitely think we'll get them soon, don't you? Like it seems.
Oh
like
yeah, no, for sure. I can see the Striker coming within like a couple of updates.
Yeah.
Maybe the Vextra for France if they feel like it.
The Dextra? What's that?
Vextra.
Oh, Vextra. Yeah, okay, fair enough. So moving on from the IFE stuff, because I definitely think we know that China has a bunch of these IFEs, and it was kind of sad to see that none of them were in the pre-release tech tree, or the tech tree that was coming. That was mainly dominated by vehicles such as the ZTZ-96s and also the 99A and also the 99. But one of the things that was also talked about on that tree was AA. And we've still not seen any, top tier really AAs for China.
No.
But there are some available, aren't there?
Yeah, I mean, you have the Type 95 SBAA, which is one that is brought up a lot because it kind of looks like a Gepard. And it's got 4 guns and 4 missiles on top.
Do we know what the missiles are, or at least their general?
From what I've read, they're IR guided, which means they would have very limited range. But honestly, it's better to have missiles at all than not even have a radar SBA.
Oh, I agree with you. Yeah, like I mean, the way I'm seeing it is anything is better than zero at the moment.
Yeah,
which is what's
not saying that the WZ-05 AA isn't decent. Like you can do work with it. The 57s, whilst they're hard sometimes to hit with, once you do hit with them with the proxy round, it isn't pretty.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And then isn't there a machine which looks pretty much exactly like the Gepard as well? Or it's very similar in design.
I'm trying to find pictures for you, but I don't have a nitro, so it's kind of different. But it's got the 2 ones that I can find are the Type 95 SBAA and the PGZ-09 self-propelled AA, which goes into the the large family of really weird fucking naming schemes that they have for their vehicle.
Yeah, the Chinese naming schemes is nearly as bad as the British when it comes to trying to work out what each thing means and how it's related to everything else.
These tanks have 3 names plus a nickname because, why make it simple when it can be hard?
Exactly. If we confuse ourselves, the enemy is definitely confused. The General Haig approach. Anyway, Tuba.
If the enemy doesn't know what we're doing, then,
Yeah, exactly. Then we don't know what's going on. It's perfect.
I found Uno picture that I could send to you.
Alright, let's stick this on. So this to me is like the 80 AA. That I think China could definitely get. Or at least one which makes the most sense, let's say. So here you go.
Yeah.
This is what it looks like. Big old chunky
because
boy.
In all intents and purposes, it is pretty much a Gepard in performance from what it looks like anyway.
Yeah. So there are options out there, and hopefully over the next few updates we do get to see some of these vehicles. I'm sure the next update, even though my guess is it's going to be focused around Italian Navy, there still will be, some there still will be some, there'll obviously be some top tier tank stuff, because there's always top tier tank stuff, so. Of
course, and Gaija's never-ending theory of onwards and upwards is the best, always.
I mean, hasn't failed them yet, kind of.
People gobble that shit up when you have premiums like the T-62 selling like hotcakes, when it's literally just a tech tree tank of another tech tree, but with a decal.
Yeah, that was kind of
Even
weird.
though I do know why was added, because it's a very historically important tank for Chinese tank development.
Yeah, it
Like,
definitely
incredibly
is.
important.
But then you compare it to like the CV90-105 and
Yeah, that thing can go up to 9.3 for all I care.
Oh, I agree.
But I think it's one of those vehicles where even if you up tier it, it'll still be really good.
Yeah, because it has everything, that
It has everything you need.
Yeah.
Every bell and whistle you could want in top tier tank.
So do you have any last things that you want to chat about on the stream?
Oh yeah, sure. The uniting factor between all of the pictures I have sent you. You know what that is?
No.
The digital camos that we only have fucking one of!
Ah, yeah, the digital camos are really nice. There is one. Are you talking about the one on the marketplace, or just the one?
Yeah,
on
the
the
Z96. There's one singular thing I've ever bought off the marketplace.
Yeah, hopefully we see more of
for a tank. Yeah, like come on, Gid.
Yeah, it does make sense to put them in. Like, I think once again, it's this is gonna come with time, and I suppose it is a patience thing. But at the end of the day, how far does the patience go? Because I already know a majority of people who are completely put off the Chinese tech tree because of the fact that there isn't any of this stuff in it.
Yeah, because what confuses me is why did the Chinese tech tree release in such an unfinished state compared to the Swedish tech tree? Did they spend more time on it, or did they just not have the resources at the time?
It is definitely a little bit weird, especially since we don't normally get some kind of tech tree released at that time.
No, we really don't.
It is very odd to me. But anyway, Tubo, it has been a pleasure having you on and talking about some much-needed content that needs to be in the game in the form of these vehicles. Hopefully one day China will become, a nation that is kind of competitive.
China will truly become number one.
I mean, you never know. You never know. Anyway, thank you, Tubo.
Yeah.
So that was Tubo the Panda, a guy who's been on the Tech Hub for an incredibly long time and has always had great conversations with Tubo. A lovely guy to talk to about pretty much anything when it comes to War Thunder. Hey Viper, how you doing, bud? Now we are going to have good old Master Lavoda on, and it's time to talk about whatever he wants to chat about. So how you doing, Lavoda? How's life?
Hello, I am doing a little bit suffering from War Thunder grind, but it's okay. I'm just sitting at home and grinding some War Thunder. I grind out a whole Chinese tank tree, and I'm grinding Chinese airplanes.
How are you finding the grind?
I find it's nothing special, but it's better than Japanese grinding. Just than grinding whole Japan tech tree.
Oh, well, that's good. So what's the thoughts you want to talk about today?
About top tier Chinese helicopters, and also how to implement helicopters in naval, so it will be fun. And also overall helicopters, why they are so hated, and why they on the game mode they can play is literally tank battles or simulator.
Okay, so let's get started with the first thing. So, was it top tier China you wanted to talk about, or just okay? So, what are your thoughts on it?
It's literally suffering because you have like T72B in Chinese tech tree basically, but T72B wannabe. It's like you have little bit crippled version of T72B. It has nice armor, but its armor overall it's not enough to face top tier tanks basically. So you are thrown into the top tier black hole with tank, which is basically obsolete on its bat rating and is getting power creeped by tanks like Abrams, Leopard, and other stuff. And also you have to play it from the stock. I just don't gold like when somebody sees new tech tree, just gold whole tree. Like in when new tree came out, just I see first day I saw somebody driving that STRV with 40 buffers and killing whole enemy team.
So with that said, with the ZTZ96 and the 96A, which, you know, as you said, kind of glorified T72s in a way, we know that there is a bunch of stuff coming to China in the form of top tier stuff. You know, the ZTZ99, the ZTZ99A, access to some kind of radar guided machine, that Object 120 looking thing as well. With your experiences in the Chinese tech tree, do you think it is still worth grinding through it right now? Or would you advocate for people to wait until, you know, until that stuff is added?
I would highly at least say to just wait, because for now it's just non-worth. Because if you reach the top tier, then you find out you just grinded the whole tree. The same tanks you have literally in other tanks, like in the US tree, some of Japan tree and US tree, but you kind of find out your top tier tanks is obsolete because you are getting spawn killed, and also because you have slow tank on its bat rating, and you can't be on the flanks as fast like as Abrams tank on Leopard. Also, your army is getting penetrated by every tank on its bat rating, because it's getting 8 of 10 battles in 10-0 or 10-3. So I would rather wait. If I would be somebody who would like to do the Chinese thing, I would rather wait for them after they add like Type 99A and Type 99. Also, they completely skipped like Type 85 tank for some reason. Basically, you have like huge battle rating holes in Chinese tank 3.
Yeah, it is weird to me. Like, I'm personally at the Type 59 and 69. I'm grinding out the ZTZ59D and the TTS, the M60A3. And I do find it incredibly odd how just creating lineups is really hard for me to do. Yeah, it's I pretty much have a lineup at 8-0, and anything above that, unless I grind out at least, you know, 2 or even 3 vehicles, even then the lineup is not looking good, but at least it's looking slightly better. So you also brought up Chinese helicopters. Do you think this is something, because they've already confirmed that Chinese helicopters are coming this year, right? They've already confirmed that is something that's happening. So do you think that's really another very much limiting factor when it comes to the Chinese top tier? Like, do you think it really needs them, or do
Yes.
you? Okay, so you think it is a limiting factor?
Yes, because you see you have other helicopters, and literally helicopters when played properly, you can just decimate enemy team. Like I grinded a K-52 2 max, and I can change battle if there is enough air support for enemy aircraft not be able to reach my K-52. And that can be said about Chinese helicopter as well, because they have so-called Z-10 helicopter, and it's like Mi-28, so it would be big game changer for China to have actually some kind of air support which can kill tanks.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think after having a look and researching some of the Chinese helicopters, they will benefit largely from those being added. I'm just kind of worried that like kind of the issue that a lot of nations have, where, you know, they'll kind of be limited in range with their ordnance.
That's about it, but still, at least it's better having something which can at least do something. Like you still have the Mi-4, and you can then on H3 if you manage to do terrible stock grind on that flying school bus, you can still do something on its bat rating.
Yeah.
Actually, we call it flying school bus because it's huge, ugly, and yeah, but still, you can pass it. Even I find out to not worth to playing helicopters entering confrontation because it's just power creep between K-52, K-50s and K-52s, and also Jukopters. And like that's no point of playing it if you don't have K-50. Just play helicopter. What's called Tank Assault Arcade, and you can grind helicopters in it. It's kind of fun, and you get like 4 or 6K. It depends if you have premium. If you want with that helicopter, you have 4 or 6K experience for grinding helicopters. So you have at least one game mode for helicopters when you can play it and grind it safely. Not if I'm not counting tank RBs, because tank RBs are a little bit broken right now for the helicopters, because you have to for the ATGMs you have to kill you have to kill like 2 tanks or capture a zone and then kill 1 tank to get a helicopter with anti-tank guided anti-tank ATGMs.
Yeah, that is true. And when it comes to you know, the PvE assault mode, I think I would also advocate for that for a lot of people to enjoy, because it is a pretty relaxing mode. It does get kind of monotonous over time. But overall, it's pretty nice to actually play to just grind stuff out. By the way, Werebu, if you want to talk about that, you need to get on the Tech Up Discord. There's a link below the stream. Look at news and announcements for the information on how to come on. So the other topic you wanted to talk about was the overall opinion of, I'm guessing, the community about helicopters, and I'm guessing why they're disliked so much. Why do you think this is, or do you think there's a way that we can fix it?
Yeah, it's because like you have tanks. There are people only dedicated to tank players. They just want to play their tanks, and they just want to be like World of Tanks. They just want only playing tanks versus tanks. But this is War Thunder. It's not like World of Tanks. You have helicopters, you have combined arms, but there are still a lot of players which would like to play only tanks. So I would advocate for adding only tank game mode. So you can play only tanks, not airplanes, no air support. Like you have in the war mode, you have sometimes battle without no air support. And I see a lot of people would like to play that game mode for only tanks without air support. Also, to have the ability to play helicopters properly, I would add helicopters RB mode back, and also helicopters arcade mode. So because what's called and the helicopter battles are completely clusterfuck. Only K-52, K-50s, and Jukopters fighting around and and shooting other helicopters which would like to grind towards the top tier. It's like in naval battles. Basically, you have like highest top tier ship fighting against small ships like destroyers which want to grind to them, but they can't because those cruisers will just decimate those destroyers. So basically, those players give up on grinding them. So they kind of know. Like it would be awesome to introduce some kind of bat ratings into the helicopter and during confrontation battles. So there would be more players to playing helicopters in helicopters AC, so they don't have to bring it to other game modes like tank assault or tank RB or tank simulator battles.
So the counter argument that has been made a lot by Gaijin on why they haven't done what is being proposed to, maybe not with the tank stuff, but with the helicopter stuff you mentioned, is the fact that, you know, either the player count is just not there for them to be able to do that, and also, you know, through them, because obviously these modes existed before. Through their findings, they find that the majority of people just play a specific mode anyway. So, what would be your counter to that? Would it be the fact that, well, if you improve the gameplay experience, you know, enough, then more people will come, or how do you see that idea?
Yeah, I would I would likely focus on improving gameplay. But problem is with Gaijin, they don't like to tend improving gameplay because they don't see it as profit. So that's like, if it would be on me, I would just let's say let's create a new game mode or just update the old game mode for helicopter RP and helicopter arcade. Because during confrontation, it's like normal tank battles. You have like what's called 15-minute battle that was for the helicopters. It could be even slow. It will be even faster. But you know the during confrontation is like about long battles. But this is about small encounters like you fight with the tank. So I would just highly focus on the adding better rating system into helicopters RB, so you can play helicopters like tanks. Like, it would be having some better rating system like a tank, so it would be having fun. So you don't have to face with your stock helicopter from 8.0 better rating like in the US K50s. So you actually can do something.
Yeah, I agree. I think at the least there has to be at least some kind of 2BR brackets for these helicopter battles, because from what I've seen, it is, you know, go premium or go bust, and even then it's go certain premiums and nothing else. Yeah, which is kind of sad. And as you've talked about, I think naval is in quite a similar state. I don't think naval's in as bad of a state as helicopters. But what would you say to the argument of you bring up the idea of, you know, an independent tank-only mode? What would you say to the argument of, well, War Thunder is supposed to be about all combined arms. It's supposed to be mixing of the different ideas. So what about like, what's the counter to that? You know, do you think there is a large enough community there that only wants to play tank versus tank, or do you think more people are interested in the overall idea of combined arms?
Yeah, I would say like most of the people has I would say like 80% of that community is interested in that. But still, you have place for adding a event like a simulator battles when you will have only tank mode. Because actually I am reading a lot of comments about like on the forum and stuff, and they are writing remove helicopters from this game. Biggest mistake of War Thunder is like adding helicopters are War Thunder's artillery. Because literally somebody does World of Tanks player don't like artillery, so they compare them to helicopters in content.
Yeah, well, I mean, the difference is helicopters are only a top tier in War Thunder, at least, you know, where artillery is everywhere in World of Tanks. Do you have any like last things you want to say to the stream or the general community?
Yeah, I would like to a little bit talk about helicopters in naval battles, because
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Because you know you have helicopters and they kind of waste on the naval battles. Naval battles are a little bit clusterfuck over everything, and the helicopters like would bring it a little bit new fighting aspect into it. So still, you would need to progress with ships, like you need to add ships with rockets so they can counter the helicopters. But it's already going process, because you see the Russian destroyer in the premium, this new Strashimi, or like how is that? The 4.7 premium destroyer, that's Neo Strashimi 1960s, and this has proximity fuse shells that could be able to counter those helicopters without no problem, I guess. So like, so at least you will have another game mode when you can play your helicopter as air support. So you will having combined arms in it. So you just can fight with helicopters, and also this. It's easy to kill with helicopter tank, but ship you will need a lot more effort into killing a ship. Like you will need to shoot more rockets into it. So you will at least having some like a harder opponent to fight with. Also, there are airplanes and ships can fight back.
Yeah, makes sense. I definitely think we're going to get to a point where helicopters are in naval. It just really depends on, are they going to go modern with naval, or are they going to go larger, you know?
Yeah, I would say it will be first larger than the modern because still you have like modern ships into it. Also, you have some kind of destroyers or frigates which already has some helipad landing for the helicopter. So it would be awesome if you could just land on that ship with your helicopter and resupply your rockets or other stuff like that. So that will be allowing you to bring also. Also, I would like to see ship AI mode. Like you have tanks assault, so you're just adding ship assault, so you can grind your ships into the assault. It's like Gaijin don't think about shit because literally, sadly, a huge percentage of community just don't care about ships. They just pretend they don't exist. And when somebody is fool enough to try them, they get killed by power creep and other premium ship. Like when PG02 was released, it was this huge disaster. It just killed all low tier all low tier ships. But still, yeah, we need to wait for this because Gaijin is like they want to add bigger ships because everybody's like we want battleships. So, yeah. Also, one problem about top tier China, I forget to mention, they don't have any SPA worth of fighting with helicopters if I don't count VZ305, basically the Su-57. So they need some kind of radar guided or um, infrared guided launcher rockets, so they can fight against helicopters. But that's only like big issue. But still, there are a lot of players which just don't bother to grind SPAs, and then just die to helicopter, and it creates a lot of frustration from them because they think they can't defend themselves.
I think when it comes to it, China will eventually get the stuff that it needs. Helicopters, I think, is a slightly different story when it comes to the game modes people are asking for, and also the naval stuff, because that's a lot of work to do for what is seen as an incredibly small community, right? So I think as with all stuff when it comes to Gaijin, you first have to build it, and then they will come. So if people can prove that there's this community out there that wants these changes and wants these things pushed forward, then they'll build it, you know. But you have to first put that proof out there, which I think is what they're struggling with because they look at their stats and it isn't shown. But maybe in the future, who knows?
Yeah, also big problem is with CM11 tank in the Chinese Tech 3. Like literally, that thing shouldn't be at least 8.0 because it's just getting pulled into the top tier like the TZ, and it's I would say it's almost the same tank like M60A3 TSS because this is like M48 TSS basically, because it has M48 turrets, but it's because that better round it's on the 893, but that round doesn't make it doesn't have that then don't have that much impact on your gameplay. You still get one-shotted by XM1s and like tanks. So yeah, they should little bit look at the China Tech 3 about the CM11 tank, because I don't think that's a tank as worth of 9.3 pet rating. It's just getting power keyed into the 10.0. Yeah, you can't. You don't have much choice to. Basically, this is your to go backup tank when you have 9.3 bet rating. 9.3 bet rating. Like, still you have 8.7s which are decent, but they are 8.7s. They are not that good as the TZ96 like the CN11. So if you take M60 IC TSS, so you will be lacking penetration, and still it's too slow. On 9.3 when everybody is rolling with XM1's Leopard, they are like maybe 2 or 3 times faster than M60s.
Yeah.
Also, Nidings Bolden, they have thermals, but yeah, it don't make sense because you are too slow to get into the firing spot fast, so you would get sniped before you get there. So that's about China. Like they still need helicopters to be at least somewhat competitive in the helicopters fighting meta, and they need surface-to-air missiles to counter them as well. Like Japan, they are completely missing.
I think eventually they'll get them, right? Like, I don't know how long
Yeah.
it's going to take, but eventually they will. Which is good,
Yep.
you know, that's what we should hope for.
Yeah, that's problem about them, about China. Gaijin adds China, and then next update they just throw up next new tree because they rather focus on next tree than fixing old trees. So they didn't bridge those gaps into it. They just throw up new tech tree because for them it's just better to throw up new tech tree, which everybody is going to grind and focus on old trees about Russia and like that. So they just spam new trees. That's sad about it because it will take time because they will try to just add new tech tree.
Well, we know the other tech trees that are coming this year. We have Italian naval, we have Italian helicopters and Chinese helicopters. I don't think anything else has been confirmed. So at least with those, you know, at least that means that gives some breath to ground to be able to actually get it done, you know, or to be able to what's the word? To be able to kind of breathe so that it doesn't have to deal with a new nation to work on. They can, you know, work on ever expanding tech trees which already exist.
Yeah, problem with the naval is it's a shitload of power creep from the New Germany, what's called Graf Spee, and other ships are just getting power creep behind it. Also, I would just completely remake that. I would just put it when in RB you wouldn't face you wouldn't just face every ship versus every ship. It's RB, so it's not arcade. So why to put single nations? Every nation against every nation. It would be better when it would be USA, Britain fighting against Germany and Russia. So it would make sense for the realistic battles with ships. But still, they need to a little bit extend bat ratings for the ships because you have same bat rating for Admiral Grafsky and Lepid's class, which is basically just enhanced Koln. That's 5.3 bat rating ship. So still, and other nations just don't have counters to this ship, so they are getting power creep by them.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and they try to push modern stuff into it in forms of the new Strashimi. That thing it's nice, but I don't think so. It's worth of 4.7 bat rating because it will get pulled up by high tier for 5.7 bat rating black hole, which will just make this premium obsolete against other stuff. Maybe it's good against patrol ball, but which other DD or cruiser is not good against patrol balls? Just bigger ships analyze the smaller ones. So yeah, those they should just focus on making new game modes. But that's the problem about it. They just don't tend to create a good game mode when everybody wants to when every ship will be able to have its own. They just tend to fuse them together and create big power creep shithole when everybody's when the meta of the first just the meta of the hype ship, which is best, will kill every ship under it.
Well,
So
I think they're worried about if they do what you're putting forward is I think they're worried about people experiencing 50-minute or 2-hour queues because there won't be enough players to be able to, you know, there won't be enough players to fill out each BR bracket.
Yeah, but that's about it. If you create that game mode, if you just spaced out a little bit those bat ratings, then that bat rating, the compression which is now will be gone, and those players will be actually able to play their ships, so there will be more players who would like to play. And also you have YouTubers, which some of not that much, but some of them are promoting. And if those YouTubers will see there is improvement, also there's viewers will see, they will start to playing that. It's about
Yeah.
that's about it, basically. But problem with Gaijin, they just don't tend to care about ships. They just put new and bigger ships and put new premium ship, which will get obsolete in the second patch because they add better and bigger ships to fight into that clusterfuck of power creep on the top tier ship.
Well, as I've said, before, I think it's a situation of build it and then, oh sorry, you have to, for them to build it, you have to show that there is a reason for them to build it, and at least in my opinion, when it comes to top tier naval, there doesn't seem to be too much reason to at the moment. And if they're going to build this whole new system and they're going to, break apart the BRs, which is what you're asking for, then what you're going to end up with is a situation where there's going to be a lull period between those players who are already at top tier smashing people already, and then those players that you want to come in to play those middling vehicles, not against those top tier guys. So you're basically hoping that the game mode survives that length of time, to be able to get there. But we'll see. I think it's definitely possible.
Yeah, that's like you are still missing submarines, which are big part of the naval battles. Basically, like they added depth charges and anti-submarine rockets, but they have no use in the game apart from shooting other ships. But still, if you have depth charge and you try to use it on the cruiser will appreciate you before you just approach a kilometer from that ship, because like those depth charges are not used to kill other ships. What Gaijin thinks players will do, and even if you try to kill the depth charges ships in the realistic battles, you will fail miserably. So I would highly recommend to in the naval to focus also in the submarine parts. It was tested in the April Fools, but like a lot of players just hated the submarine part. But I enjoyed it. Submarine has a big potential, but still it will get power creeped by other stuff. Like they will add like a Cold War submarine, which will just kill that other stuff, other ship. So they will just get power creep like other ship.
Aren't you worried about the speed of the submarines and how slow they are?
No, like submarines are small, but still you can make you have like the what's called German submarines. They can get them to the point, and you have like you don't have to always go run or your electric engines. You can run your diesels if you are in the snorkel speed. So still you can be a little bit risky and float on the water, and still you are low profile, like, and you can get to position and then wait for those bigger ships to come in and try to snipe them.
Yeah.
Also, when you just progress them, you will get guided torpedoes, which will be a nice counter to long-range sniper ships. You will just snipe like your guided torpedo, and then kill those snipers. So like you told about, I heard about your video about that PGO2, which will be able to bring those long-range missiles. But still, I think they are way to counter those bigger ships. Like they don't have that much ammo, so they would be like having 2 or 4 rockets. You will kill like 2 ships, and then you are out of ammo, and you are only with your 20 mil gun. So, yeah.
Yeah, it would
like,
be a bit of an issue.
Also, it would create like the bigger ships would get killed by then, but the smaller ship will get sniped as well. Still, it's like, yeah, but still, it's a good investigation to buy that PGO2 for now, and when the sales are going, if you want to grind Japan, because it's a nice ship for its bat rating. It's not that broken as it was when it got introduced. But at least they are doing something in terms of bat rating, but it's not enough. They just rather to push new bat rating, new bigger ships like the heavy cruisers, which would just kill the smaller ships, and also the better cruisers. So the small but better ship, yeah. So still, like, if we could push over, they would get still push those helicopters, so that would create a little bit more more stuff to make the battle more diverse. So there would be just only ships and
Yeah, I agree.
Also,
It'd be nice to have more variation in the game.
solo you have like enduring confrontation. You can easily add into the ship enduring confrontation helicopters if you are good in it. If you just fight, if you get enough at the spawn point. And like problem with those confrontations, they just tend to be only top tier battles. So yeah, you can play with only with top tier ships into it. But yeah, this is just how ships are broken in their way. But as you said, Gaijin is not willing that much to care about them, and they don't want to. They don't.
I think
don't,
they care about them a lot. I think it's more about the issue of they don't see the potential in what you're asking for because they don't see the community actually rallying around the ideas. Like when Naval EC is out, right? When Naval EC, the savior of big ships, it has the same issues as it has the same issues that I see that top tier naval has anyway, so it doesn't really fix anything, So whenever there is a step seen by some which is in the right direction, it never seems, at least to me, to make any sense. I think there are fundamental issues with naval that Gaijin have realized, or at least some people have realized, and I think they're trying to fix them, and I don't think you can. I don't think it's from a lack of caring that you can't. I think it's from a lack of... I think it's just from a, this is what happened historically, and they don't know how to fix it from that point of view. If that makes sense.
And it looks like they don't much care. I mean, they don't much listen or advises how to fix them.
No, I don't think it's that either. I don't think it's they don't listen to advice on how to fix them. I think the problem is you have a community which is so disjointed in telling them what they actually want, and there is no unifying voice, which is why I keep talking about the building it and they will come thing. Because there is no unified idea around what you're talking about. There are individuals, especially on the War Thunder forums, who keep pushing these ideas, just like the big map community from the ground point of view, or the tanky sea community, which are a very loud minority of people. But at the end of the day, it's not a mass. It's not something which is mass popular, right? And that is the issue.
A lot of people just want to, like, not that much player wants that, but yeah, because it's about ships, then people most care about tanks, then planes, and then ships.
Yes.
They just don't play, they just love tanks. But that's why it's how it is, because not many players plays it, and it's so called they don't have anyone like a single opinion to push through to improve it. The problem with that, it's like it needs more changes than just a few changes which will just save it.
I think that's fair enough, and we'll see over the coming months what those changes are. I'm sure there'll be a lot of stuff to look out for. But as always, Lavoda, it's always nice chatting to you about these things, and hopefully, as I said, hopefully soon we'll see something done about them. Do you have any last things you want to say to the stream?
Yeah, I would like to say, please don't complain on forums on those helicopters. It's not easy to play them. Although K-52 is one of the best helicopters in game, Apache can still do huge damage to enemy teams. So it's not about K-52 being a cancer. It's about just helicopter not having a good game mode and good place into game.
Yeah, that makes sense. And as always, Lavoda, thank you for coming on. It's very nice to have you on, and I hope you have a lovely evening.
Yeah, see you.
See you, bud. So that was Lavoda, talking about a bunch of different things, and I'm very happy that he has come on. It's always nice to hear from him, as it always nice to hear from many of you when it comes to the general community and your thoughts about issues that you see in the game, or just if you want to talk about stuff. Now, right now, I am trying my best to land this damn thing, But yeah, it looks like we're going down hard. Oh, but we might be able to repair. Hopefully. No. Oh well. Just is how it is. We didn't have a tail. But anyway, the next individual we're going to have on is good old Rocker. So let's see what Rocker has to say and how he's doing. How are you doing, Rocker?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Been a rough day, I've got to say, in the Bombers so far, but it is how it is. What is what is the topic you want to discuss today? What's going on in that brain of yours? Oh, and also, before I forget, thank you, Sticky, for the subscription. That's very kind of you. Thank you for supporting the channel, and also thank you for the follow. No username available. Sam, that's very kind of you. Right, go ahead.
I think it's time for a bug fix patch, Tech. I think. No.
Not while I'm fucking drinking, thank you.
No, I think it would be nice to see not an update centered around it, but an update where they significantly expand like munitions list that we have, as well as like our ability to maybe modify those munitions and stuff. I know this has been talked about on like past developers and stuff, but there's like a lot of bombs that are not in the game that absolutely could or should be. There's a lot of rockets, missiles I'm sure will come with time, but I think there's a lot of interesting things that we're missing out on just because they're not in game.
So you're not. I thought the angle you were going to go on is the, being able to choose specific loadouts on like pylons and things like that for machines. But my guess is, or maybe you want to talk about that too. But the other thing was like, give me some examples of stuff that is missing, because there was actually a pretty interesting War Thunder forum post which went through a bunch of stuff, and basically what they were advocating for was a way to set up a system where, let's say, you could kind of pick the type of bomb that you wanted and then add features to it. So an example that was given was the RP3 rockets, and then you could put a different header on it, whether it be a heat one, a HE one, or an AP head. Is that what you're talking about, or are you talking about just more general stuff?
That to some extent, I remember they also went into the idea of like bomb fuses and stuff, which I think is a little more precise than we need. But I think rocket warheads, for example, I don't know if it's mentioned in that post, but you also got, it's been brought up in the past, the heat warhead HVARs. The HVARs they're nice at the lower tiers. You can kill a lot of open top vehicles. Hell, you can even kill Panthers if you get lucky, or I've gotten 1 or 2 tire kills with it. But there's a heat warhead for that. It came out sort of late war. I think it might have been Korea actually, but that's something that I think would be very useful in some of those higher tiers, like where you're running, say, an AD4 with HVAR. Why shouldn't you have the heat warheads on those, right? And then there's also, obviously, you got the tall boys and the the
Grand Slam,
the Grand Slam blockbuster bombs.
Yeah,
basically.
Big
those
old
are missing. They wouldn't be super useful, but then again, neither is the P8's 5,000 pound bomb, right? Or 5,000 kilo bomb. But there's no reason we shouldn't see it. But the whole thing that drove me to this is I was looking up like what the max theoretical conventional payload for the the B-58 Hustler would be, and I came across a photo of it with 2 Mark 82 bombs, like two Mark 84 bombs, the 2,000 pounders that we have in that you can use on, say, the F4E, or I think the A4 can carry one.
Yeah.
But it also, on that same loadout, had 2 of the M118 3,000 pound demolition bombs. And I think those would be interesting to see, because they would one hit kill a base, but not by so much that you're wasting a lot of payload capacity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
It'd be a pretty efficient use against a base, and then you'd carry other munitions out for use against other things. You could ground pound after that, or you could go to the airfield. And I do think along with that, it'd be interesting to see the ability to choose your pylons. But at the same time, I feel like there'd be a number of people disappointed by certain loadouts that you would carry, even if you were allowed to choose that, because there were certain like on the F-14, for example, if that ever got added, you could theoretically carry six AIM 54 Phoenixes at the same time. You could theoretically do that, but it was never regularly done in practice. So would that be allowed, even though it wasn't a standard loadout? You also have like the 5 Vulcan, the 5 gun pod loadout on the F4E, which theoretically was possible, or the F4s in general, which theoretically was possible. It shows up on the subreddit all the time, much to my chagrin. But while it was theoretically possible, it wasn't necessarily allowed by the Air Force or regularly done by the Air Force. So I don't know, I feel like there'd have to be a line drawn there, and if Gaijin's not clear about that, I think it would be the source of a lot of controversy among the community.
Well, even now, if you think about it, these conversations have been going on since I've played the game,
Right.
since 2013. And the reason for it is because of a few simple things. So nowadays we're talking about, crazy bomb loads and, what you'd be able to bring and all of that stuff. I mean, looking at even the vehicle I'm using right now, the Year 2. The Year 2 has its overloaded bomb load as its maximum bomb load. It's one that it should only be able to carry very short distances, and that's it. In-game, your fuel capacity for this short distance is 3 hours. So we're not talking about something that is a short distance bomb load. We're talking about, basically just a massive bomb load on top of everything. And if you compare that to a bunch of other vehicles in the game, which aren't allowed their overloaded bomb loads, or haven't got them, let's say. So, stuff
Right.
like the Lincoln, the Lancaster, pretty much every British bomber, and then even a lot of the American bombers too. So these conversations have been controversial, if you want to put them like that, since then. So I think as long as they are balanced in a way that doesn't fundamentally break the game for certain vehicles, I don't think people would, be too bothered. I think as long as, they didn't take over the game with certain loadouts, it would be alright.
Right. I think I think there's definitely a lot of room. I think there's a clear need for this starting to come up, because if you look at, let's look at, say, the P-47 loadout, you got 10, 15 different options there. You got your 500s and your 1000s, your HVARs, and all the mixes of that. And then if you look at the F4, the F4 has 30 different loadouts,
Yeah.
and it's starting to get ridiculous. It's starting to fill up the whole screen with loadout options. So wouldn't it be easier to make it so that you can pick and choose? And I don't know. I don't know, because there is also the balancing aspect to it. For example, if you look at the AD4, you have two Hydra pylons, or pylons that you could stick Hydras on, unused, presumably for balancing reasons.
Yeah.
Or sorry, 2 on each side, I should say. So I don't know. It's a matter of how Gaijin needs to find the right way to balance that out, so that you can have the player choice, not have to worry about choosing one of 30 different loadouts, while at the same time obviously not making something too overpowered.
I mean, the way that a lot of people have talked about how to do this is by doing it by maximum weight. So the idea would be you would be able to choose whatever is on each of your hard points, but at the same time, you would have like a maximum weight that it can't go above. What do you think about that kind of idea?
I think that makes sense to some extent. I think obviously you shouldn't be able to bring out 1,000-pound bombs on each of your pylons on an A1 Mauler or something like that.
Yeah.
I think it does make a lot of sense, but I still don't know if that would be enough or the right way of doing it. One thing I was thinking about was if we're talking, say, choosing your specific warheads and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
let's say you choose, I want the heat HVAR. That's what I want to bring out. Increase the SP cost or stuff like that. Maybe like it's a 50 increase in SP because it's an attack. It's an anti-tank missile rather than just a standard aerial missile.
Yeah.
Stuff like that I think would help out a bit as well.
Yeah, I definitely
don't
think
know.
different weaponry would be nice to see. And obviously, this wouldn't just be something that, could be done for high-tier vehicles. It could also be something that's done for lower-tier ones, especially with the way that many bomb racks work for plenty of machines in the game. So, yeah. I mean, the big... What do you think is the next big step for War Thunder munitions, then, in the game?
I mean, I think obviously the next big step that's going to come is going to be some guided missile or another, whether it's radar guided or laser guided or something like that. But I think there's a lot more room if Gaijin wanted to go this route to improve. Like everyone talks about how the World War II aircraft don't get enough love, or the World War II vehicles. We don't see any new World War II vehicles anymore. But I would say the biggest problem is World War II munitions. Like those we haven't seen any change in those in years. The latest, the newest munition added was in the AU-1, the AP bomb, and even then that's just a minor addition, and that's been the first addition in years to those Korean War / World War II munitions that we've seen. Yeah.
I suppose the last big change for World War II munitions was the rocket change, right? And that feels like, well, that was years ago. I don't even know how long ago that was.
I guess the Fritz X as well. But
the Fritz X.
That was a... Like, come on, that
a
was
gimmick. I think is the way to put it. Yeah, it's not something that is a mainstay with any vehicle.
Yeah.
When
was the last time you got killed by Fritz X?
Yeah, exactly.
Anything other than maybe a boat, but even then.
I tried to use the Fritz X from the Grief in naval, and the ships are too maneuverable, so you might as well just use normal bombs. Like it's as effective.
Maybe in realistic. Maybe.
I don't know. We'll have to see. But yeah, I think you're right with the missile thing. I mean, it was brought up earlier as well, but the idea of cluster bombs. I would love to see some of the Soviet cluster bombs that we use by stuff like IL-2s. Even though they wouldn't be exactly useful, it would be beautiful to see the effect in the game.
I think they could be useful if you implemented them the right way for enduring confrontation and stuff, but in regular use, I don't think they'd be amazing. You could kill probably a few open top vehicles with them or something, though. So
yeah, that's true. Like yeah, you could definitely at least try, I suppose. Like give it a go.
So if you're able to get out early, you could use it as one of the capture point denial systems. So if someone's fast enough, are you 251 on the cap? No, he's not. He's gone.
Yeah, well that's another thing. Like I don't know if you caught it before. We were talking about the B-36 and the Tu-95. One of the worries I have so much, and you can do this already with the B-29, just no one does. The idea of just carpet bombing a whole ground map, you know, just reducing it to rubble and everything around it as well. That's something I'm very much worried about when we talk about more modern day munitions and how they would work in War Thunder.
Right.
But I mean,
I think the bigger fear would be guided bombs in that respect.
Yeah.
Because I mean, sure, you could theoretically carpet bomb with say an F-15E, but you'd be much better off using each of those as JDAMs or something else and individually targeting vehicles with each of those. I don't know. There is definitely a worry about that, especially with something like the B-36's bomb load or the B-52 or the Tu-95. With those big bomb loads, you could afford to make 2 or 3 runs across the map and just bomb everything.
Yeah, that is true. Like, we'll have to see, like, if or when they add them, if, you know, people are going to be able to do that or not. I'm really worried, if I'm honest, if they ever do it. And I'm sure they will, because, you know, it seems to be, as we were talking about before, like, whenever a new thing is added, the mind goes from that to the next thing, give me this, and seems like for some reason we're running out of things that people want. So now we're at aircraft carriers, obviously the A-10, we're at flipping, you know, what we were just talking about, like the big super bombers, and I don't know. No, I don't see anybody, you know, huffing for the Harrier anymore.
Right.
And well, we'll see. Who knows?
Yeah.
Just is how it is. But anyway, Rocker, do you have any last things you want to say to the stream?
Nope, that's about it.
Oh, wonderful stuff. Well, it's always nice having you on. Thank you for joining me, and as always, take care.
Alright, you too.
Right, that was good old Rocker, and I think what we'll do is I'll end it here, because obviously at this time, you know, we've been going for about 2 hours. It's been lovely chatting to a bunch of people about many different topics, and as it always is. And the thing is, we're going to be doing this, you know, or try to do this every week at around about the same time, you know, on Thursdays, because that's generally when I have time. So yeah, if you're interested, make sure to be available around, you know, that time on Thursdays. And if you need any more information on when these Fireside chats are happening, make sure to check it out on the Tech Hub. The other thing as well is I just want to thank you all for watching. I will be streaming a little bit later. I will be streaming some War Thunder, but for now I need to get some food, and I also need to hang out with the family. So, as always, it's been lovely. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time.